Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of CoinNewsExtra Interviews, a program where we invite stakeholders, innovators in the blockchain and cryptocurrency ecosystem to talk about what they are doing and to educate the masses about blockchain and cryptocurrencies. So today we'll be talking about asset tokenization on blockchain, and we have the CEO of ARYZE, Jack Nikogosian, who will be joining us. Jack, you're welcome to CoinNewsExtra.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Jack is joining us all the way from Denmark, and it's our pleasure to have Jack. Jack, how is Denmark?
Denmark is great. Yeah, I just learned that we're almost in the same time zone, right? So it's also almost midday over here. The sun is out. Beautiful. People are wearing masks. It's weird, but it's good.
Okay.
How are things in Nigeria? How are you doing? Are you guys staying safe and sound?
Yes, Nigeria, we are doing great, and things are returning to normal over here in Nigeria. I will thank God for that.
Okay.
So today, thank you
That's
for joining us. So today we're talking about asset tokenization on blockchain. Before we go to that topic, Jack, can you just give us a brief about yourself?
Yeah, as you mentioned, my name is Jack Nikogosian, and I'm a Danish guy who is running a company called ARYZE. And ARYZE is a startup that blossomed out of what's called Copenhagen FinTech Lab. So Copenhagen and Scandinavia has a very big and prominent fintech scene, and we are one of the startups that came out of that scene. We're trying to create what's called digital cash, or what we call as digital cash, meaning we want to create something where you combine the agility and transparency and security of cryptocurrencies, where you combine that into the real world of banking and money and finance and transactions and digital contracts. So we're trying to make a digital version of cash money, and that's going really well. That mission is now we're up to, I believe, 5 years. No, 4 years in the making, where we've been trying to build this concept, and it's going really well.
Interesting. Nice to know that. So we are talking about asset tokenization on blockchain. So before we go to asset tokenization on blockchain, we would like to understand what is tokenization.
Yeah, so it's funny because the Danish national currency is 95% digital. Everybody here uses some kind of mobile app for their money, and everybody have a bank account, and it's all digital. But that money that I hold in my bank account, we just call it digitalization, not tokenization. So the question is, what's the difference, right? What's the difference between digitizing stuff and tokenizing stuff? And in terms of money, well, PayPal is digital money, right? So Revolut is kind of digital money. What tokenization means is that you create a digital version of something, an actual tangible asset. You create a digital version of this asset structured as a token on a blockchain. That part is kind of important, that it has to exist on a blockchain, because that is kind of the common denominator where these different tokenized assets are able to talk with each other and trade with one another. So tokenization of assets refers to creating a digital version of an asset that can be issued on a blockchain, which is preferably open sourced and transparent and have a reason to move it on a blockchain, right? That's what ARYZE essentially aims to do: create a digital version of cash that can be issued as a token on third-party blockchains and on third-party systems.
Thank you very much for that explanation of what tokenization is. So you haven't known what tokenization is. So what are some of the assets that can be tokenized on a blockchain?
Well, we've seen over the past few years, since the inception of blockchain, almost, that all kinds of different concepts have existed on a blockchain. So people have tried to build everything from tokenized real estate, like property, to enable, for example, a brick share model where you have 1,000 people that can invest in a property where they each own 1,000th of the property, for example. Or we have seen tokenized cars where you can purchase, say, 1 millionth of a Ferrari or 1 millionth of an old fancy veteran car. Anything that can essentially be traded on third-party marketplaces could be tokenized to enable that they can be traded on third-party open source marketplaces. That's kind of the difference. So if we've seen tokenized gold, tokenized silver, we've seen tokenized electricity, where you're able to buy and sell electricity. And even if you have, for example, a solar panel that generates electricity, you could tokenize that electricity and then sell it to other parties that need to purchase electricity on this electricity marketplaces. We've seen tokenization of contracts, where you have an agreement between two business parties. Let's say that one company says, I'll give you $1 million if you ship me 5 containers of X, but I'll only release the money after the ship has sailed 70% of the trip, right? Some kind of digital agreement between two parties, which today is enforced by middlemen and escrow accounts and lawyers and all kinds of bureaucracy. Those things could also become tokenized and exist within the framework of a token on a blockchain. It becomes difficult because you could technically tokenize anything you want. You just need another party to agree that what you have tokenized, I actually trust it. So if I tokenize my firstborn, like ownership or over adoption papers of my firstborn or something, right? And then somebody gets my private keys and they're like, no, this is my daughter now. Well, maybe that's going to be difficult to enforce, even if it's on a token. But if you tokenize something, and then like if the government tokenizes all the cars in the registry of cars, then it could be much easier for people to buy and sell their cars to each other and trade ownership of the car. So if you and me agree to a price, I send you the pink slip for my car, you send me the money, and the smart contract transfers the pink slip to you and the money to me. So now you can see that the tokenized pink slip is now with you, and you have now ownership of this car. I hope that kind of gave a bit of an understanding of what tokenization could be. ARYZE is trying to tokenize one simple thing, cash. We want to take cash and make it a tokenized representation of cash money. That's our goal, an electronic dollar to begin with. That's what we're trying to make. Sorry, I can't hear you. I don't know.
Interesting. It's like you are a lecturer. I don't know if the way you explained it perfectly well. So moving on, we've been able to see what is surrounding blockchain technology when it comes to innovations and talking about tokenizations and blockchain. There are some issues when it comes to regulations. There have not been some places, there have not been regulation clarity. So are there ways regulations are hindering this innovation of tokenizing assets on the blockchain?
I think that there might be some markets that move so slow in terms of the financial regulators. They might move so slow that it can be very difficult for modern technologies and modern concepts to try to fit in a framework which is very old and very ancient. For example, ARYZE tried to, or we didn't try, we actually did. We raised, I believe it was $1.8 million as a pre-sale, where we did an ICO very early on, where we crowdfunded, our funding round. Essentially, we raised money as an ICO. That for us meant if we had to do that from Denmark, we had to follow the prospectus rules set by the Danish FSA, which involved, amongst other things, that you cannot send your prospectus or your white paper to more than 150 people. So that's like an old rule from the times where you like send letters via probably horses or something, right? So it's like an old rule that is not optimized to the world of IT and the world of digitalization. Uh, we had to fight that battle, and we did, and we won. We proved that it can be done, but now everybody else can just kind of be inspired by what we did, right? So yes, regulation can be limiting, but you just got to have some brave startups that try to push some boundaries and try to do it the right way. And if you do it the right way, you can succeed, and that's what we did. And then you see, some regulators that are much more agile, and like in Liechtenstein or in Switzerland or some other jurisdictions where it might be really quick on innovation, and that's perfectly fine too. But I think that if you try to follow the rules that are in place already regarding, data protection, data management, and AML and KYC, and you follow the rules in place and you try to do it the right way, I don't necessarily see the regulators as being the one stopping you. But if you want to do some shady, anonymous crypto token for casinos and gambling, and nobody knows what's what, and you can't do any proof of funds, yeah, don't try to do that from Denmark. Don't do it. That's not going to happen. They'll stop you. So, but if you try to do it the right way, you can do it all around the world.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. Lastly, before we draw the curtain on this episode of CoinNewsExtra interview, what are some of the advantages of tokenizing assets on the blockchain?
You could tokenize an asset and then make it function on a platform that you don't have to trust, or your partners don't have to trust. So it can enable transactions between parties that do not necessarily know and trust each other, because the actual enforcement of the contract or the agreement suddenly happens on a blockchain by a machine rather than by a human, so to speak. So if I have tokenized dollars on a blockchain and you have tokenized gold on the same blockchain, well, then my token and your token, they kind of speak the same language. So if we want to trade them to each other or send them to each other or build a game around them or something, we could. And then a third party joins in with tokenized real estate. Well, his or her tokenized real estate can now speak the same language as my token and your token. And that enables continents and countries and governments that don't trust each other necessarily to still be able to conduct business with each other based on digital contracts, because they suddenly use a network that's not mine, that's not yours, that's not the Russians, that's not the Chinese, that's not the Americans. Nobody owns it. It's like a public utility, the blockchain, right? It's all over the world and everybody can use it. So tokenized electricity from a Russian company like Gazprom could function with tokenized gold from a company issued in the US. And these two tokenized assets could suddenly trade between each other at minimal fees, because you just pay gas to use the blockchain, right? Whereas in other situations, you would be able to purchase shares or stocks on a traditional exchange with brokers and middlemen and intermediaries and banks before you could even buy electricity from Gazprom, or before you could even buy digital dollars from a bank somewhere. Tokenization removes the entry barriers to work with, access, and transfer traditional assets that in normal circumstances are very difficult and expensive to transfer and use.
Thank you very much. Lastly, what's your closing remark?
It is that I think that young people in Nigeria and in other places in Africa should know that the rest of the world are actually looking to what you guys are thinking and doing to be inspired. The fact that something like M-Pesa, it didn't start from the West and then it came to Kenya. No, it started from a problem locally and got fixed locally using local solutions. And when you're looking at what communities and universities and thinkers are doing in and around African countries, I think that it's important that those people are really proud of themselves and that they keep pushing forward and understand that we are not an inspiration to you guys. It's the other way around. Like, it's really, really cool to see what kind of innovation happens in areas that up until now maybe haven't had a lot of opportunities. So when we start getting the minds from people locally and the first ideas they create when they understand Ethereum or Amazon hosting or mobile apps, these first solutions that local young people from schools and universities all over are making, we look to that for inspiration. So I just keep going hard. I think it's really, really cool what's happening around the world. Stay positive and try to do good, right?
Thank you very much. This is CoinNewsExtra interview session, and today we talked about asset tokenization of blockchain. And joining us to talk about it is Jack Nikogosian, who is the CEO of ARYZE. Thank you, Jack, for joining
Thank
us
you
today
very
on
much. Thank
CoinNewsExtra.
you.